Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're all doing fantastic. This is Melissa with Coffee Break and Melissa, here with a licensed relative foster parent, Jennifer. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you very much. Very well, thank you.
Thank you for being here. How's your day going?
It's going good, besides the cold and the little one being sick.
Aw.
He's a little under the weather, so... But other than that...
Oh, okay. How old are the kids in your home?
We have one. He is a little over 3.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, fun age.
Fun age. Yes, he is. Very fun.
Keeps you busy, huh?
Very busy. He keeps us so busy, and he's got a little extra energy, it seems like.
Not a bad problem to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's such a sweet thing, of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and people that are like in the relative position of fostering, how did you come to the decision to do it? Like to actually say yes and all that?
Well, it started before the baby was born. The parents had, the father is my nephew, and he, they asked me, if need be, could I do it? And it took me a little while. I had to ponder that a little bit. It wasn't something you take, you don't take that question lightly. Can you foster? But there was a little time. She was maybe 6 or 7 months pregnant, so we had a little time, and then the baby came, and then that's when we said yes, my husband, myself, and my daughter lives at home, so we all made that decision to help, and that's how we looked at it, to help, first the baby and then my nephew and the mother.
Well, thank you so much for doing that.
Oh.
And that's a common theme in the conversations I've had with people today. I love that it was a really, truly considered and
Yes.
thought out answer,
Yes, it was. Because you think about, you don't know how long, you'll be having the child in your home with you, and, you think maybe it might be just a month or so, but sometimes it turns out way longer. And so, we didn't anticipate it being that long, but, we were ready for anything. But so that decision was made, and we were very glad we made it. Yeah.
I'm glad too. I mean, we have wonderful traditional foster parents that don't have a emotional bond prior or biological relationship, eager and waiting and training and doing all the steps. However, when family is there, that is wonderful, and that's who we turn to first.
Yes.
To keep kids in their environment with the things they're familiar with, the people, keep them connected to.
Yes, that's another thing too. Of course I love my family, and to help any way I could. I thought, this is something that I want to do, and I wanted to help my nephew and the mother. So that was another thing too. I'm a helpful person. I try to be. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason too. They needed that help. They really did. So, and we knew the alternative probably would have been, out of family. Yes. So I'm so glad that they had asked the family first.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, efforts get made for kids to have visits with family,
yes.
like in particularly with grandparents.
Yes.
But it's so much easier when it can be worked out internally through family, and as far as coordinating time and less restrictions for contact with extended family members and things like that.
Yes. And I think about the other foster children that go outside of family, and they go into a loving home, and I'm just, both parts are very, very important,
Yes.
family and non-family, because it's needed.
Yes.
But, you know, it's just something that I'm so glad I was able to do for my nephew, and it's the baby's mom. So,
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we really don't ask for a lot. You got to have, you know, a physical space that's,
yes.
you know, a room, a space in your home for this child to be. You've got to have the willingness to work with us,
Yes.
to communicate with us.
Yes, there was a lot involved. You know, Andrea, she came in, Andrea, and, you know, she was there to help with the paperwork. We were told, and I'm so glad, you know, because you think, oh my gosh, it might be overwhelming to think about, you know, you're taking CPR classes, you're doing some parenting classes, and, you know, if you look at it and you think, you know, it might be a little inconvenient. But,
Intimidating.
yes, intimidating. But, you know, now that we can see it was all worth it.
Yeah.
It was very, very well worth it. You know, we learned a few things too, my husband and I. So, you know, you learn things even if you have a child at home, and there's things that you learn. But, you know, it's just so good to take the things that they ask you to take, because you're just going to need it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might not realize it till later.
That's right.
That training came in handy, or now I understand why I needed to go do that extra thing. Or,
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's right. And it does help so much.
Yeah, and actually, I have to backtrack, because depending on who you ask, a lot is asked of you, of foster parents. You're trusting total strangers, you know, workers, casework. You know, there's a world of people that you are opening yourself up to, be able to ask questions, come in your home.
Yes.
I guess I was looking at it in the grand scheme of things. For the importance of the job,
Yes.
It is not too much to ask. In some ways, in other ways, it is very, fingerprints. That's invasive.
Yes.
Your personal information, your social history for licensing, especially.
That's
you know,
right.
There's the home studies. There's
Yes.
references. You know, and once those things are done and out of the way, really, it's so much smoother after, you know.
Yes, you know, when we were doing it, while we were doing these, we have visits every couple weeks. You know, they would come in, and then they would ask you about going around the house, making sure it was child-proof. Well, you can appreciate that, of course. And so they would ask about that. They would have visits. We were required to take CPR classes, which I'm so glad to have that. I'm so glad about CPR classes. So I didn't do it on my own, so having them come in and ask me to do it was a blessing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so my husband and I, so that was nice. And then we have to do a refresher every couple of years.
Yes.
So that's nice, because after 2 years, you kind of
get a little rusty.
Yeah, you get a little rusty.
Yeah, and you're empowered to know what to do in a life-threatening emergency.
Yes. Especially for the age he's at, he'll put everything in his mouth, and so you got to just really be careful on that.
Yeah, and
yes.
Something new is coming called certification, where for relatives the process is going to be simpler.
Oh.
For getting the full board rate, and it's going to be an alternative to licensing, to the process you did.
Oh.
Yeah, so certification is a way of reducing extra barriers for relative foster parents and streamline their ability to tap into the full support of the department, and for us to approve of the home and through the study, and there's still steps and safety measures,
yes.
but hopefully this will serve our families even better.
Well, I think about that too, and I think about some people get like you say, a little overwhelmed, and even backing out, to the point of backing out if it seems to be a little bit too much for them. And then making it a little bit simpler You know, it might be the difference between fostering and not, you know, because there are people that just, they get overwhelmed and they don't do it.
Yeah, and there's resources that are involved, you know, getting those medicals and
Yes.
as it relates to training and equipment,
Yes.
as it relates to space in your home.
Yes.
All of that there's accommodations being made to help it be easiver for foster parents
Yes.
to do the job.
Yes, that's right. We were always offered from Lutheran social services, you know, they would always ask us if there was something that we needed, you know, just don't hesitate. If they don't have it, we'll figure out a way to get it. Or do, you know, if there's beds or anything like that, you know. When we got the child in, we didn't have anything. So, and he come home a day earlier than we expected. So we were kind of rushing a little bit, but Lutheran was always there to help. And they were very kind and talked us through so much and helped us, you know, and they were really upfront about everything.
Well, that's
Yes.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yes, they were.
That is the goal, and that's what needs to. We want people to have a positive experience.
Yes. Yes, and they do, you know, they do that, and you know, kind on top of everything. So it made that the you know, the process a lot better. You know, everybody was kind and helpful and suggesting this, and you know, and come to find out the suggestions were well needed, and so it's been pretty smooth with Lutheran social services. You know, they really helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you're such an important member of the team. Because we couldn't do it without you. It's, you know, like Andrea's role, the caseworker's role,
Yes,
judges, management. Like we care,
yes,
but we can only be there just so much compared to you.
yes,
You're 24 hours a day,
yes,
7 days a week.
yes, and like I say, Lutheran Social Services has made it smoother for us parents, as foster parents, and you know, so that is so appreciated. And you know, you hear about being certified, then you know, and getting licensings, and then you think about, you know, taking more children in if you're able to, you know. And Andrea had mentioned, you know, the space needed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes, you know, they will put a couple kids together in a room, and I didn't know that. So there's new things that you know, and, you know, if you're limited space in your home and you want to have another child to help, or, you know, you bring another child in and you don't think you have enough room, I didn't know that they could, you know, share rooms and stuff. So, yeah.
Accommodate, yes.
Yes.
And
yeah.
especially with keeping siblings together.
Yes.
That is top priority.
Yes, it is. And so that's important, you know. That is very important. Just thinking of the humanity of it, having siblings together, not wanting to separate them.
So I was wondering, how has your routine changed? I mean, you've had the baby, well, almost go 3 years.
Yes. Well, it was always my husband and me and my daughter, and she's older, so it was just us. And of course, we loved children to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were asked about bringing the baby in, he was just out of the hospital, 2 weeks old. So everything changed. I mean, everything. Going back to waking up in the middle of the night, feeding the baby, and no sleep, of course. There was no sleep.
No sleep.
But I was grateful, you know, my husband and my daughter were there to we all pitched in. And we loved every minute of it, having a baby. Even, you know, having to get up in the morning, in the middle of the night, and then learn to, not learn, but to feed the babies again, bottles, diapers. It was all new. Everything changed.
Yes. Oh, nothing like holding a baby.
Oh, my goodness. And they're so delicate. Last time I held a baby was years. It's been such a long time from holding a little baby, and just a new one, 2 weeks old. So, yeah, it was.
What a beautiful. I don't know. It's hard. I would imagine it'd be a gift, an opportunity to
It's-
serve
it's
someone
such
so fragile.
Yes, it's
You know.
such a gift. It's such a blessing from the Lord. I mean, to be able to help, but babies are vulnerable. They're helpless. So, you're there to help and to take care of them and to be able to be a part of that. It's not all roses, but it's there and it's rewarding to help,
Yes.
to care and nurture a baby, especially the vulnerable,
Yeah, and that's why the process can be intense because there's a lot on the line. Kids can easily be hurt accidentally. You just don't know so many things.
Yes.
Ins and outs of care for nonverbal children, especially that can't tell you what's
Yes.
wrong if something hurts, and you have to be vigilant to getting to know them and with the signs, and
Yes.
it's important to have good people doing it.
That's right, and like you say, not a lot of times fostering is going to be a little new baby. You'll foster someone a little child that might be nonverbal, and some of the classes that are offered, Lutheran Social Services will offer. They suggested taking these classes, and it helps so much.
Yes.
In case you happen to bring a child home that don't talk.
Yeah, or like speech delays,
Yes.
developmental delays,
Yes.
medical issues
Yes.
can be an extra barrier to,
Yes.
or trauma. You can have none of those delays, but
Yes.
the emotional and bonding can impede or make it a little more challenging. But with consistency and your patience and willingness to meet them where they're at.
That's
and
right.
get help.
Yes. Because it's just a big difference for the child. Us willing to go those extra steps to learn about the child and their medical issues if they have any. It's all boils down to helping the child.
Yeah, and not taking it personal.
That's right.
When they
Yes.
feel like a rejection or
Yes.
talking back.
Yes.
Just normal things that, not everything is tied to them being in care. They're just in a stage of life where there's,
Yes, that's another thing we learn, and in some of the classes we take. If one takes a class for a child that for their emotion, if they have emotional problems, you'll learn and you be patient. It's all important, to be patient and kind and to learn because they need that.
Absolutely.
They need that, so you try to do the best you can. That's why, anybody that can come in and help and offer and give advice is so, so important.
Well, this conversation is going to be extremely helpful, I think, to people. I would get a lot out of it listening to it. And I'm really getting a lot out of it and being the one here with you.
Yes, and I've learned a lot from others too, from the videos and just, listening. And, there was a lot that I didn't even think about, when they asked you to foster. And then you think about that, and then it just boils down, like I say, to helping and to loving a child that needs it. All children need it, but,
Yes.
There's some that are more vulnerable, and you just want to be there to help if you can.
Yes.
Yes.
Was there ever a time where you were asked to do something different than you normally would have because the child's in this care, where it wasn't just an instinctive thing to do that was asked of you to do or not to do from the agency?
I think so. I think, when we got the little boy, the little baby come in, he was little, but then, we had noticed some little bit of delays, and, we were asked about, making sure that we know how to deal with some of the delays. So we were asked about maybe taking a class for, some of his cognitive delays.
Sure.
And then, they would tell us about, maybe he might get frustrated, you know, because we thought maybe he's a little frustrated. They thought, well, maybe he's getting frustrated because he can't speak it out, and you know, he's getting a little frustrated. So we got to thinking, you know, maybe it was just an anger thing, or you know, now that he's a little bit older, we're seeing a little bit, but we were thought maybe it's just an anger thing. Well, they thought maybe because he's angry because he can't speak through right.
Sure.
And we were thinking about that. So we would have never thought about that. You know, as, you know, parents we have one child, we never would have thought about that. Of, you know, maybe it was because of speech delay.
Yeah. So it makes you give them, you know, the benefit of the doubt more, and the extra willingness to, you know, not take it personal.
Yes, not taking it personal. Yeah. So yes, and you know, we're learning as we go along. You know, my husband and my daughter and me, we were learning as we go along, and you know, it's valuable because you don't know if you know, if you get another placement in the home, you know, what we'll need.
Exactly.
So we try to remember all that. So
well, thank you so much for what you're doing. Please keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
And as we wrap up for today, is there anything you or your family is celebrating? Is there a win in your guys' life?
Well, I mean, you know, being foster parents, I just think that's so rewarding. And it's just such a blessing because I always thought I was an introvert to where I just didn't like to be out or do anything. And just backwards, and I thought, well, this is just going to be it. But when we got a placement, I thought, oh, well, we're coming out of our shell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a celebration there.
No, that's
It's
awesome.
been a long celebration, too.
Well, may those celebrations keep coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And take care, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.